So, a very good afternoon to all of you. And as the so-called third wise woman, my job is to battle with the SGLT2 inhibitors. We all know that the paradigm in the management of type 2 diabetes has moved on from being glucocentric to an overall cardiometabolic renal risk reduction. We know that these oral medications are approved for type 2 diabetes. They act on the kidney's SGLT2 transporters to reduce the glucose reabsorption, now recognized for pleiotropic benefits beyond glycemic control, and the FDA indications have expanded to include heart failure and chronic kidney disease with or without diabetes. They work on increasing the sodium excretion and urinary glucose, thereby reduce the plasma glucose and blood pressure, also lower the insulin levels, cause mild ketogenesis, improve the cardiac fuel efficiency, have favorable impact on the volume status, arterial stiffness, and preload and afterload on heart failure. So they cause weight loss and control of sugars by glycosuria and calorie loss. The fluid overload. The SGLT2 therapy leads to reduction in the fluid overload, largely driven by the osmotic diuresis. They also improve the cellular energy efficiency, and these mechanisms contribute to the glycemic control, cardiovascular, and renal benefits observed in clinical trials. When you see the key metabolic effects, a modest A1C reduction of 0.6 to 1%, independent of the beta cells, a modest weight loss of 2 to 3 kgs, they lower the systolic and the diastolic blood pressure, reduce dysfunctional fat, and improve the insulin sensitivity. They also lower the uric acid and triglycerides and may decrease the risk of gout. On CGM, they have been shown to decrease the glycemic variability. This is the summary of the cardiovascular outcome trials with the various SGLT2 inhibitors. For paucity of time, I'll just take some of the main ones. The landmark trial you all know was EMPA-REG, which compared empagliflozin versus placebo in patients of type 2 diabetes and atherosclerosis and showed to decrease cardiovascular death by 38%, all-cause mortality by 32%, and hospitalization for heart failure by 35%. So first evidence of mortality reduction from a glucose-lowering agent. And what is important, the benefit was seen within 3 months of starting therapy. CANVAS with canagliflozin decreased MACE in 14% patients. DECLARE with dapagliflozin decrease in hospitalization for heart failure by 27%, but no significant MACE benefits in the primary prevention cohort. And cardiovascular protection consistent with heart failure outcomes, but MACE varies by population risk profile. Dapagliflozin and empagliflozin tested in patients with reduced ejection fraction of less than 40% with or without diabetes showed that they decreased cardiovascular death and hospitalization for heart failure by 25%. The benefits were seen regardless of the baseline A1C, which validates their role in cardiology, and now they have been recommended in the heart failure guidelines as class 1 recommendation and across the entire heart failure spectrum. Emperor Preserved showed decrease in hospitalization for heart failure by 21% in patients with ejection fraction of more than 40%. Deliver with canagliflozin showed similar benefits. So they were the first therapies to demonstrate benefit in heart failure with preserved ejection fraction, expanded to entire heart failure spectrum. And now the guidelines recommend for heart failure with preserved ejection fraction in patients with NYHA class 2 to class 4. So in patients with type 2 diabetes and atherosclerosis, cardiovascular disease, the SGLT2 inhibitors, CVOTs, have demonstrated a distinct cardiovascular outcome benefit, and they have also shown consistent benefits for cardiovascular death or hospitalization for heart failure in patients with heart failure, regardless of the left ventricular ejection fraction category. So class-wise, they reduce heart failure hospitalization by 30 to 35%. CV death reduction in high-risk type 2 diabetic people. Atherosclerotic cardiovascular benefit is stronger in secondary prevention, and importantly, early divergence of events. The benefit appears within weeks to months after therapy. Now, moving on to the second organ of protection, which is the kidney, and these are all the SGLT2 trials in patients with chronic kidney disease. They can potentially delay kidney failure by many years and also avoid hemodialysis sessions by many years. And the summary is that all agents slow CKD progression, especially with proteinuria. They reduce the EGFR decline, the end-stage renal disease incidence, and the need for dialysis. Albuminuria is regressed across the trials, and they complement the ACE inhibitors and ARBs in reducing the intraglomerular pressure. So, using SGLT2 inhibitors on top of standard of care gives you pleomorphic multiple benefits. How do they work? Hemodynamic, natriuresis decreases the preload, afterload, and the glomerular pressure. There is fuel shift to ketones, which enhances the myocardial efficiency. Improved hypoxia-induced factors signaling energy efficiency in kidneys. They reduce the myocardial overload and also have anti-inflammatory and anti-fibrotic effects. Safety profile, my previous speakers have already spoken. 10 to 15% have genital infections, but these are either preventable or manageable. Slight increase in the UTI. Yes, there is a risk of volume depletion and hypotension, so we should use them with caution in elderly and those who are on diuretics. They carry a risk of diabetic ketoacidosis, including euglycemic decay, so we need to educate our patients about the sick day rules. Fournier's gangrene is rare. There was an additional amputation signal in the CANVAS trial, but that has not been replicated in the later trials, and the black box warning by the FDA has been withdrawn. So, ADA recommends for type 2 diabetes with atherosclerotic cardiovascular disease, heart failure, or chronic kidney disease. KDIGO says to add SGLT2 to ACE inhibitors or ARBs in CKD with type 2 diabetes. The ESC, ACC, heart failure guidelines all give class 1 recommendation for heart failure with reduced, mildly reduced or preserved ejection fraction, and they encourage early addition after metformin, considered even before in high-risk patients. In fact, the NICE guidelines, which came out only yesterday, 22nd of August yesterday, they have put SGLT2 inhibitors as the first line drug even before metformin. So initiate if the EGFR is more than 30 ml per minute. For DAPA, it is more than 25. Hold during acute illness, fasting, or 3 days before major surgery, and avoid in type 1 diabetes due to DKA risk. The prescription has risen across the endocrinology, cardiology, and nephrology, and has almost doubled from 2020 to 2024. Also high uptake in heart failure and CKD clinics, even in non-diabetics. And with the patent expiry in 2025, the prescription has gained because of generic access. So this is an unequal fight. I will let this August gathering decide who's David and who's Goliath. But if you compare them 1-to-1 for glycemic control, SGLT2 inhibitors, a modest effect, 0.5 to 1% reduction in A1C, more with the GLP-1, even more with the dual GLP-1. But SGLT2 are oral drugs, a single fixed drug, as compared to the other two, which are injectable, have multiple doses, and they have to be escalated in order to mitigate the gastrointestinal side effects, leaving aside the oral semaglutide, that is Rybelsus. For weight loss, SGLT2 again modest decrease of 2 to 3%, more with the GLP-1 RAs, more dramatic with the dual GLP, and other surrogate markers are also reduced by all the three drugs. Cardiovascular outcomes, SGLT2 inhibitors decrease the 3-point MACE by 10 to 14% in high-risk type 2 diabetic patients, which is a class effect in atherosclerotic cardiovascular disease, and benefit is concentrated in those with existing atherosclerosis. GLP-1, 14% relative risk reduction, more effective in reducing fatal and non-fatal stroke, and they are the first-line drug for atherosclerotic cardiovascular disease reduction in diabetics. For the dual GLP-1 GIP, the CVOT, which is comparing dulaglutide with tirzepatide, is still pending. Cardiovascular mortality, reduced CV death in patients with established cardiovascular disease, and benefits are likely driven by heart failure and sudden death reduction. Pooled data again indicates class trends towards improved survival. Hospitalization for heart failure strongly reduced, and they have become the class of choice for heart failure prevention. CKD progression, robust reduction in CKD with SGLT2 inhibitors. Now standard of care for DKD, significantly reduced albuminuria, and they have become the first line in DKD for all type of diabetic patients with CKD or even in non-diabetics. Safety, common side effects with GLP-1 and dual GLP-1, which can lead to a discontinuation in 5 to 10% of the patient. Yes, genitourinary more common with SGLT2, but India is a poor country. Remember, type 2 diabetes is a chronic disease with lifelong treatment. Look at the cost. Rupees 40 to 1500 for SGLT2 in place of thousands. So, they are oral drugs, they are single fixed drugs, and they are pocket friendly with benefits on the kidney and the heart. So it's a win-win situation. So the adherence is better with the SGLT2 inhibitors. This is the timeline of major studies on SGLT2 and GLP-1. And in the middle, we have the combination therapy real-world studies. And what did these show? Combination therapy offers additive benefits of integrating complementary mechanisms and safety profiles. So, in summary, SGLT2 versus GLP-1 RAs or dual GLP-1, last slide, is not an either or decision, but rather a question of which first and when both. And finally, when women hold space for each other, mountains move, hearts heal, and magic happens, because we are never meant to compete. We are here to complete each other. Thank you.